In this episode of Chief Relationship Marketer, we're going to talk about what Relationship Ascension Marketing is and why you have to apply this strategy to your marketing efforts or risk going the way of the dinosaurs. So the big question is this: how can marketing leaders at small to mid-sized companies break through all of the marketplace chaos, noise, and competition to execute differentiated marketing that connects with buyers on a human level, building real meaningful relationships at every stage of the buyer's journey, while at the same time generating measurable results that elevate their organizations and their careers to new heights? That is the question, and this show will give you the answers. My name is Frank Coel, and welcome to the Chief Relationship Marketer Show. So today we're going to talk about Relationship Ascension Marketing. And when we talk about Relationship Ascension Marketing, the first thing that we want to talk about is, what's the problem? Why is something like Relationship Ascension Marketing even needed, or why should we even be discussing this? And so as I think about what's happening today in most marketplaces, as companies are looking to take things to the next level, it's really going to require a different approach because it's harder than ever due to all the marketplace noise and saturation to just stand out and get traction. You know, that old saying, what got you here won't get you there. This has never been more true when it comes to marketing your brand because of the noise, the saturation, competitors coming in from every angle, the rapidly changing landscape. And what's happening to people is they're starting to see things like advertising costs go up, harder to find out if advertising's working, even in the digital age. The length of sales cycles have increased, conversion rates are way down, cost of customer acquisition as a result is going way up. And to make matters worse, there seems to be someone new on the scene every other week with a new way to do something, a new hack, a new trick, a new channel you're supposed to be on. And most of the people that are experiencing this just don't know who to believe. They don't know what to listen to. They don't know who to trust. And so the big question is, how do you stand out and create consistent, predictable activities that can be a growth machine for your brand? And that's what we're going to talk about today, and how Relationship Ascension Marketing can help you achieve that. So what Relationship Ascension Marketing does is it helps you not only be measurable in the digital world, but it also helps you become meaningful. And that second part is really the magic. It's what's missing in today's crowded, noisy world. It isn't the next channel. It isn't the next tactic. It isn't the next ad platform. It isn't the next analytics tech. It's really taking an approach that's going to allow you to be meaningful with your target audiences. And so this idea of being meaningful, I've worked with my team to develop over the course of many years to come up with this concept called Relationship Ascension Marketing. And at the heart of Relationship Ascension Marketing are 5 core philosophies: hyperspecificity, customer service mindset, slow down to speed up, top-down optimization, and commitment and consistency. We're going to go through each one of those briefly today. But the one thing that I want to talk about before we jump into those things is that I'm not the next guru teaching the next hack, and this is not a silver bullet. You certainly need to have your outbound program going. You certainly need to have your channel program going. But brands that invest in an inbound approach, and what I specifically call a relationship ascension approach, win over the long haul. And that's what we're talking about today, is how do you do things that are going to create equity for your brand over the long haul so that you can eventually turn the tables on the marketplace and have people coming to you in a very natural, logical way. Yeah, so let's talk about each of those 5 philosophies now. The first one is hyperspecificity. And so what this philosophy says is that with each of your approaches to your marketing efforts, when you think about campaigns, and I'll use that word because I think it's friendly and everyone understands it and can get their mind around what a campaign is. So when you think in terms of campaigns, what I want you to do going forward is I want you to get hyper specific with each campaign, meaning that each campaign must be about one persona with one goal and one pain point that's standing in the way of that goal. And so think about that. Think about the industries in which you serve and what you're really great at solving, and where's that intersection. And once you find that intersection, go down one more level and say, okay, who within that intersection cares most about that goal, and what's the pain point they're experiencing that's keeping them from that goal. And that's how you really drill down to a hyper specific place. And when you have that defined, you want to make sure that all of your content, all of your assets, everything around that campaign is geared towards that one hyper specific intersection. And the reason this is important is because if we want to have a chance to stand out, we need messages that are magnetic, messages that speak to a specific someone and not to a general audience. I mean, think about the last time you paid attention to a piece of content, you did so because it spoke to you and not a general audience. So hyperspecificity is key. It's how we're going to really resonate and start to create that meaning that we talked about a moment ago. Philosophy number 2 is a customer service mindset. So now that we have our hyper-specific intersection, we want to apply a customer service mindset. What this means is we're going to serve this audience as if they were already customers of ours. I like to say that they are already your customers, they just don't know it yet. And so if you can serve them from this place, you're going to produce content that doesn't promote, instead it enriches. So everything you do, don't think of promotion, think of enriching and bringing value. Serve them as if they were already your customers or clients. Okay, the third philosophy of relationship ascension marketing is slow down to speed up. What this means is we need to bring an awareness about the relationship progression that these folks have with our brand and apply that to the various content and offers that you're providing to them. And so what this means is it's no longer acceptable to say, hey, we're going to generate traffic and then which ones are turning into opportunities for our sales team. That's ultimately what we want to happen. But there's a whole lot that goes on in between there. There's a whole relationship progression that you need to be aware of. Sometimes people call this a buyer's journey. I like to think of it as relationship progression. So as they start to develop a relationship with your brand from just the moment they visit your website, think about where they may be in their journey and what relationship you have with them at that moment in time, and then serve them as such. So what this means is you're likely going to have to develop offers that have nothing to do with buy now, get a quote today. You know, those audiences are really great to attract, but the reality is there's at any given time, call it 3 to 5% of your total addressable market that is ready now, that you can engage them and they're going to be a sales opportunity tomorrow. So that means the other 97% of the world is not in market to buy. So what are you doing with those folks? How are you building relationships with those folks, even digitally, before you have a chance to engage them one-on-one? So slow down to speed up means you need to put things into your process that seemingly looks like you're going to be slowing things down. But the reality is you're becoming more magnetic because you're becoming meaningful to people that aren't in market. Philosophy number 4 of relationship ascension marketing is top-down optimization. So what this means is once you get your system in place, I want you to think about relationships again and think about the ultimate relationship you could have is when someone becomes a fan of your brand. And what I want you to do is start there at the top. I call this the top, right? Becoming a fan is the top relationship you could have with somebody. So when you start there, I want you to look at your product, look at your service, look at what you're offering, and ask yourselves, are we turning people into fans? And if we're not turning people into fans at a rate that we would be impressed with, then you need to ask yourself why. Why aren't we turning our customers, our clients into fans? And the reason it's important that we start there is because if we start to step on the gas with a bunch of ad dollars and content production and all of these other whiz-bang softwares that you might invest in, but your product, your offering by nature isn't sticky, it's not turning people into fans, then you're essentially throwing money into a leaky bucket, if that makes sense, right? So what we want to do is optimize from the top down. And the reason this is so powerful is because if you look at any given system where the bottom is the entry point and let's say the top is the end, or looking at it left to right, you go the beginning all the way to the end. When you optimize from the end and work backwards, you'll get more output from that system with the same amount of input. In marketing speak, what that means is the input, which is traffic, That's the most expensive thing to do. It's the most inefficient thing to do. You do all this work to drive thousands upon thousands of visitors to your website. And at the end, you end up with a client, a handful of clients, right? It's an extremely inefficient system by nature. So we have to optimize from the top down or working backwards. And so that the same amount of traffic coming in will yield more customers, will yield more fans, right? And that creates a flywheel effect because once you have fans, they're going to refer more business to you. You're going to have more gross profit in the lifetime value of that particular client. So top-down optimization, optimize from the end and work backwards, from the top down. And once you're effectively turning people into fans, then go to the previous step. How many of those opportunities are we turning into customers? Are we closing at a ridiculously high rate? If not, if we don't have industry-leading close rates, why? It's not because you aren't good salespeople. It's because something about the offer, something about the value, something about the positioning isn't right. Again, we want to think in terms of relationships, not closing. So where in the relationship are we not bringing the right value to make that relationship ascend naturally? That's top-down optimization. And so philosophy number 5 of Relationship Ascension Marketing is commitment and consistency. And what commitment and consistency says is that in any given effort, if we want to achieve anything great, it's all about the commitment and consistency we're going to have over the long haul. I mean, just stop to think about if you've ever been to the gym before and ever attempted to get in shape, you'll know that during the first month or so, it really sucks. You're sore, you don't like getting up early, you hate leg day. It's just not all that fun. And even 3 months in with high effort, you don't look all that different, right? But when you make it a lifestyle, when you make it a habit and you apply discipline to that and have that commitment and consistency, you're going to look back a year later and say, wow, I'm glad I started a year ago. And I'm glad I've been committed and consistent for this whole year. 2 years, 3 years, you're going to look back and you're going to be unrecognizable. And the same thing is true when you're trying to grow your brand, grow your business, fill that pipeline. When you're committed and you're consistent with your efforts and you apply a relationship-driven approach, 1 year in, 2 years in, 3 years in, you're going to be an unrecognizable brand. So some of you may be wondering, hey, Frank, this just sounds like inbound marketing. You're applying some cool concepts to it, but how is this different from things like, inbound marketing? What I would say to you is Relationship Ascension Marketing is essentially an inbound marketing approach, but it's also something you could apply to your outbound marketing, to your channel marketing. This idea of relationships and we're applying relationship psychology to those efforts is the key. And I think the reason this is so important to inbound marketing specifically is because the promise of inbound really hasn't come to fruition for most. If we think about what happened during the early days of inbound, if we go back to the years of like 2005 to 2015, inbound was easy. There weren't a lot of players. The saturation wasn't there. So you could start doing your SEO. You could start doing your blogging. You could put up some lead gen forms. And before you know it, your inbound lead gen was through the roof. But the landscape has really changed. And you can no longer do that stuff, do the bare minimums and the basics and expect that inbound's going to be just this magical thing where organic traffic just goes through the roof and all of a sudden your marketing automation goes to work and people are just naturally going to become clients and raise their hand, in droves. And so what happened was the early adopters were like, yeah, this is awesome. And then everyone else since then has been like, this isn't really working. And the reason it isn't working is because nobody has really had a specific playbook for inbound marketing until today, until Relationship Ascension Marketing. And that's what we do with it is not only do we apply relationship psychology to inbound, but we also are giving very specific content recommendations with Relationship Ascension Marketing, which we'll talk about more in another piece. But the most important thing that I want you to take away is that the key thing is not just being measurable, but it's about being meaningful. So how can you apply that relevance, that meaning, that one-to-one meaning for your audiences? That's where inbound really takes off. And so this is going to require that you actually get narrow in order to go big. So what happens when you apply Relationship Ascension Marketing? What are the kinds of things that you might experience? So I'm going to go through a few things that we see regularly day in and day out with companies that adopt this approach. one of the most important things is that your sales and marketing teams are finally aligned and happy. They're on the same page. They're no longer, butting heads and at odds with each other. They are literally following the same game plan. You'll see things like overall website conversion will often double, if not triple, in a very short period of time once these things are applied. We're talking 60 to 90 days. You'll often see the number of leads coming into your site double and triple. You'll find that these leads are often more qualified and pre-sold on your brand because you're serving them with value. You're really getting hyper specific on their situation. You're being more meaningful. And so that is going to pre-sell them on why they should be working with you. You also find that your sales team is just way more efficient, which means they're going to be closing deals faster. Your sales cycles are going to shorten. Your deals are going to close at higher rates and higher margins. And then, more time is just going to be freed up for other growth activities. Ultimately what we're talking about with Relationship Ascension Marketing is that you're not only going to grow faster, but you're going to grow smarter. So let's talk about a few examples from my experience and my team's experience in running companies through this. One example we have is with an event planning software company. And so, they really lacked a lot of brand recognition in their space, and they had been producing content really for content's sake. They heard they were supposed to be blogging and doing stuff for SEO, quote unquote, but they really weren't getting any traction and really weren't ranking for anything. So that effort really wasn't paying off. And so, ultimately what we found by analyzing everything that they were doing across traffic, conversion, and nurturing, their bottleneck was traffic. And so when you start to apply Relationship Ascension Marketing to the traffic problem, right? This is where we marry strategy and tactics. What we found was that they needed to get much more specific with their content and start organizing around relationship experiences with their specific personas and the specific pain points. And so when they started doing that, like almost immediately, the new content started ranking for targeted keywords because we really dug into the relationship aspects of what was happening between them and their customers or their prospective customers, and realize the content wasn't geared towards those relationships and that relationship journey. It was geared towards Google, which I'm not suggesting you don't do keyword research, because clearly that was an important part of the plan. But before, they were starting in the wrong spot. They were starting from a place of what's in it for me rather than how can I elevate this relationship and dig in from the relationship psychology standpoint. And wouldn't you know it, that fluffy, touchy-feely stuff dramatically improved, quote unquote, SEO and organic traffic. Had another client in the wealth management space and, really small marketing team, limited bandwidth. And they were doing a lot of different things. A lot. But we're seeing very little traction across the whole system. And so again, looking at top-down optimization and looking at how the tactics are organized across traffic, conversion, and nurturing, we realized their biggest bottleneck was conversion. And so one of the things that this company did is they, attended a workshop to learn about Relationship Ascension Marketing and decided to start taking action and start working with us. And by applying these principles and starting to focus on the conversion aspect, they've been able to grow their marketing team because they're getting buy-in from the executive team finally, which they never had done. Their lead flow is dramatically increased because they realized where their bottleneck was, and the content was improved and the content was effective because now it was more meaningful. And so now they're having opportunities and prospects where they're pre-sold on this particular firm, and deals are closing much easier. Final example is a B2B payment solutions company. They had a bunch of contacts in their database, and they thought, these people aren't qualified, just people sitting there doing nothing. And so again, looking at that top-down optimization, realized, wow, this was their biggest opportunity, which is a nurturing opportunity. And so what we started to do is not just employ nurturing, which, that's often a word that's thrown around that people don't really understand what that means beyond sending emails. But when we started to apply the relationship psychology and say, who is in the database? Who are these personas? What are the pain points? What did they originally inbound on? Started getting much more specific and targeted. And the emails saw greater traction. And there were actually people being very active with the content. And this was just in really short order. This happened very quickly. And obviously they have a sales cycle and it takes time for people to mature into deals. But this was a company that thought they had a database filled with unqualified contacts, uninterested, kind of quote unquote dead contacts. And once they started applying the right kind of psychology to this, lo and behold, these contacts are actually engaging, clicking, responding, etc. So just a few examples of why this touchy-feely relationship psychology stuff means so much to the tactics and the things that you're looking at from a data and analytical standpoint, that if you just bring in this relationship ascension methodology, this mindset, you're going to go much further with the efforts that you're already giving towards producing content and offers and working on your automations and what have you. Folks, I hope you enjoyed this overview of what Relationship Ascension Marketing is. This show called Chief Relationship Marketer, we're going to be talking about principles related to this for many shows and the different tactics of how you might implement and how you can become more relationship driven in your marketing approach. But I hope you got a ton of value out of this, and stay tuned for the next episode. If you want to learn more about what we're talking about here and check out other episodes, go to chiefrelationshipmarketer.com. For more Chief Relationship Marketer content, episodes, and more, visit chiefrelationshipmarketer.com.